I call the meeting to order. It is 6:02 p.m. and this is the regular meeting of the Kaneland Board of Education. We would like to inform all board member attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. Mr. McCauley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And a roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Here.
Mr. Kleisner.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Dr. Lawler.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons is absent.
Okay, with 6 members present, we have a quorum. Is there anything the board would like to move from consent to new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Okay, we'll proceed to the board/superintendent salutes, and I'll turn over to Dr. Rowling.
I'm going to then turn it over to Dr. Atkins.
Good evening. Thank you. I have a guest with us tonight. I'm going to have him come on up here. As some of you may know, our current director of the Fox Valley Career Center, Dr. Rick Burchell, is retiring at the end of this year, and we're here to introduce Mr. Bob Ghosh, who will be replacing him. We started looking at candidates back in late fall. We had about 16 applicants. We narrowed the field, did some screening of 6 applicants, brought 3 back to group interviews, and then after that, in a series of questions, performance tasks, entry plans, welcome letters, all those kinds of things, had a final interview with Dr. Rowling and Mr. Kim, the superintendent of Batavia, and made a selection to have Mr. Bob Ghosh join us. Bob is well, I'll let him introduce himself, but comes to us with quite a pedigree. He's been in education for about 15 years, 7 years as a principal, got his bachelor's, his master's, his EDS, all from Western Illinois, my alma mater as well, so we love that. We have a really exciting year ahead of us with him at the helm. He has some great ideas for where the Career Center could go and what it could look like over time. So that said, Mr. Ghosh, come on up and introduce yourself, say a few things, and we'll welcome you.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody that's been part of the interview process and the Board of Educations that are here supporting me as well. I mean, I'm very, very excited to be in this role and have accepted this position. I have a deep passion in career and technical education, finishing up my 8th year in administration, and I've worked real hard with businesses and community members and kids and parents to get kids into opportunities that just aren't always the norm in the high school. So look to bring that innovation here to the Fox Valley Career Center and for all of our students.
Excellent. Well, welcome, and we're going to look forward to some great things. Did you want to introduce anybody?
Yeah, I probably should do that.
Yeah.
The ones that are running around causing a ruckus here. So my beautiful wife, Kelly, she's now herding cats out in the hallway with our 2 youngest, Hallie and Callaway, and then my daughter, Evelyn, here, who's in 4th grade in Somonauk. So we're excited to be in this area, and again, they've been very supportive, so we're very happy.
Excellent. Thank you. Love this part of my job. Thank you.
All right, and we are very excited to have Bob on board. Additionally, I want to recognize, he's not here, but Brian Faulkner of Harder Middle School was recently awarded the IPA Middle School Principal of the Year for the Kishwaukee region. So more demonstration of the great work going on here. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, tonight's consent agenda contains the following information. The following action items: the approval of the Treasurer's Report, January 2025, approval of the minutes from the January 27th, 2025 regular meeting, approval of personnel, approval of destruction of audio and audio recordings from closed session meetings from August 2023, and the following informational items: the student suspension data report, the field trip notification, Freedom of Information Act reports. At this time, I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent items as listed.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. The consent agenda is approved. Okay, we'll proceed to public comments. Coming around. Okay, we have no one signed up for public comment. Does anyone want to speak at this point? Okay, then I'll save the spiel. And proceed to new business. The first item of new business is the approval to seek bids for the spring 2025. The approval to seek bids for 2025, excuse me, Dr. Bogan.
Sure. We are definitely underway for preparing for the 25-26 school year, and as part of that process, we would like to initiate our procurement process for the year. After having several discussions with our Director of Building and Grounds and other administrators, we do have 3 separate items that will require bid this spring. One is fuel. That is an annual contract. Currently, it's with Feast Oil, and it will expire in June of 2025. We also have copy paper. That is another annual bid that will expire at the end of this year. And then also up this year is a 3-year contract for security services. Currently, it is with Stewart & Associates, but will conclude at the end of this year. In addition to those 3 items, the school district's electric and natural gas contracts will expire at the end of this year as well. Instead of going through the normal bid process on those, we've been talking about an alternative model in exploring how we could possibly utilize an energy management company, which is a third-party vendor. Essentially what they do is they offer real-time market monitoring and also cost-saving procurement strategies within that. They take on a lot of the compliance and oversight and the administrative responsibility for that. And they are compensated directly by the energy supplier, not the district, so there are some savings there. But if approved tonight, the next steps of that would be in selecting a firm, updating our policies, and then also establishing some performance metrics so that we know that this is the best process for the district to use. So more information coming on that. But we also have several routine items that don't require public bidding this year. You know, things like custodial paper supplies, our auditor services, copier services, cafeteria food, special education, transportation, athletic training are just a few of the things that we don't need to go out to bid for this year, but may need to do that in future years as those contracts expire or we look to update those vendors. And then last but not least on this, capital projects have already been approved, but we have not done those bids yet. So bids for any of our capital projects that are occurring this summer will also take place throughout the spring. So definitely lots of things to be working on and that we have in motion. But tonight we are seeking the board's approval to move forward with the bid process on those 3 items: fuel, copy paper, security services, and then also approval to move forward with the alternative model for natural gas and electric.
Are any of those possibly cooperative?
Yes.
Co-op purchases? I think, isn't photocopier paper
We
covered
could, and
by the co-op?
we've done cooperative purchasing in the past for copy paper. We moved to that when during COVID, when we
Right.
couldn't find like one
Yeah,
supplier
no.
for all of it. What we found last year is that we actually got better pricing doing the typical bid, so we like to continue with that. With some of our other custodial paper supplies, some of those other things, we are currently, in lieu of a bid, we are doing the cooperative purchasing, just because the pricing, you know, we have seen some better pricing there.
Might the co-op want to bid, or the supplier via the co-op?
I can look into that.
Yeah,
if
I'm
they
just
would.
thinking casting out as wide a net as possible to try and economize to the extent we can. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jackie.
Sure.
Which vendors are you looking at for the utilities?
So right now, as a third-party vendor, we have talked with Nania Energy. They currently have our contract for natural gas. And then we have also spoken with Santori. They're another third party. Those are the two that we've reached out to at this point to get additional information and just really see if they would be a fit for what we're looking for. Any firm that would be selected, we would bring them back to do a short presentation to the board about the entire process, how it works, all of those things.
Yeah, no, it's nice. There's another company out there. I'm not sure there's a ton, but Siemens is another company. And just the amount of market data that they do have, they keep track of everything. They can show you trends. And very, very easy to work with as well. So. And then they just take care of everything, so it is much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question, I guess. Auditor services. So where I came from, we rotated auditors every 4 to 5 years in the name of transparency and also just out of fairness, I guess. Is it possible that at some point we can start looking at maybe, and this is nothing against our current auditors, Lauterbach and Amen or Amen, but I'd like to see, because the trend seems to be where'd all the money go, we're in a deficit, you know, is it possible to go out and look for potential options for auditor services so that because auditors get comfortable, right? They go in, they know the process, it gets comfortable is the best word I can use. So what does that look like?
Yeah,
Can we do that?
so we definitely can do that. So we currently have a 3-year contract with our auditor, and it expires at the end of the 25-26. So that would be something, if we'd like to bid, I'd bring back to you sort of this time next year. And then we would look at putting an RFP together and doing a formal bid on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm still here, then I would be definitely pro that, just rotating. Okay. Questions, comments from the board? No? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education directs administration to procure the items above by seeking public bids for negotiating contracts as described.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Dr. Lawler?
Aye.
Mr. Bankivsky?
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye. Okay, motion carries 6-0. The approval to seek bids for the spring of 2025 is approved. The second item of new business is the financial projections presentation from Dr. Bogan.
Okay, thank you. I know you have the full presentation listed in your packets as well, but I'm gonna go through this. You may notice we're doing this a little bit later, right? Typically, we would do this presentation either the December or the January meeting. We will be looking to go back to that timeline for next year, just so that everyone is aware of that. So going back to that a little bit earlier. 5-year projections, we used 5Cast, which is just a program, a software that's put up by Forecast 5. The district has been using this software since 2009. You know, they do give a lot of great support. They're constantly updating this system to add new features, and so it definitely was really helpful having the Forecast 5 team throughout this process this year. But really what it's helping sort of with that multi-year financial planning. Doing a lot of scenario comparisons has been really helpful this year, right? Like if we do X, what does Y then look like? And so doing a lot of that, but then also giving you the option to just have that detailed budget and performance analysis, and really having it as a tool to help prepare the budget for the upcoming year. Those are really the big things. the data really starts with our current budget. And so our current operating funds budget is $76.4 million, and that is covering the education fund, operations and maintenance, transportation, and working cash. Once we know that, and then we also have to put in what are key revenue assumptions, right? And so we know that local revenue here in this district makes up, the majority of what we're getting. And so that's really what we see. And so within that local revenue, there's a couple areas that we're looking at that we have to make assumptions about. One is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. I know you guys hear a lot of that when we talk about tax levy. But for the purpose of this, we are going to be using 3.42% for next year, because we know what CPI is, and then for all other years we'll be using 3%. We know, looking back, that the average has been right around 3.5%. We do know that's dropping, right? So this past year for December it was at 2.9, so we think it'll stay right around that 3% if we look at those averages. The next thing that we look at, this is our CPI slide, but this next one here is also our tax base and what new construction looks like. And so if we look back at the 5-year average, it's just under $13.5 million for new construction. The last couple years, we've seen significant increases, 15.6 million, and then for the current year, after working with the counties, as we talked about in the tax levy, we're estimating that we're gonna see about 22 million just in new construction. And so that's really good. That means our tax base is increasing, and so we can spread sort of what we need, along a wider net, more people.
22 million EAV?
EAV, correct.
EAV.
Just
okay.
in new construction.
Okay.
The district now in total is over $1 billion. It's actually 1.1 billion total. But so very conservatively, we're assuming that we're gonna at least have 11 million in new construction, new EAV for the next 5 years. What that means, right? Like, Jackie, what if you're really wrong, right? So what if you're really wrong about CPI with these projections? A 1% change in CPI would affect our tax levy by about $600,000. Also to note, 1 million in new property, a change. So say we don't get 11 million, we get 12 million, that contributes about $46,500 to the tax levy. So not, right, CPI is much more weighted, right, than new construction. But that's just important to know as we go through this. These are the factors. This is also something, each year you're gonna hear a different number. You're gonna hear me update this year over year as we know what actuals are from the previous year.
It's a moving target.
Correct, and we
Yeah.
try, but
Yeah, understood.
that will get updated. On the expense side of thing, again, we start with our current operating expense budget, which is $75.47 million, and this really is right. Major costs are including salaries, benefits, transportation throughout the district, facility maintenance is another big one. And so we sort of start with that. Okay, what did we spend this year? And then we go through and we really think about what are we spending next year. And so we've talked a lot about staff changes already in previous meetings. So those have been taken into account in these projections, so those reductions. What we've also put in here are our knowns. So we know what increases look like for staff who are under contract, KEA, for the next 4 years, and then we also know we know what those knowns are for the next 2 years. After that, for any of the unknowns, we've put in 3% as a placeholder, and that again is aligned with CPI, and so that's why we do that. But that's also an area as we go through and contracts get updated and things like that, we'll update that to reflect actuals in here.
Jen,
Yeah.
Quick question.
Sure.
How do we account, or how are you accounting for positions, for the delay sometimes in filling a position? What we call state calls it lapse expenditures.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
So we,
A couple months of
we budget for those, so
Okay.
those are in the budget, right? So those positions that we know, like you'll see in the March staffing plan.
yeah,
We budget for all of those positions. At the end of the year, that's where sometimes there's that difference between what the budget is and actual expenditures. And we've seen that previously, right? Where we're forecasting, you know, a deficit. Well, then we come to year end and the deficit isn't bad or as bad, right? Sometimes that's in those unfilled positions, that's in that lapse. And so one of the things that, you know, we've really talked about as a district is how do we tighten that up? How do we also take into account some of those historical averages of unfilled positions? So it's not that we don't want to budget for it, but in my conversation with everyone, then when, like in June, you're going to hear me say, this is what we've budgeted for. The 5-year historical average of unfilled positions has been, you know, equates to $800,000, whatever it is. So I can say what budget it is, but then I'm also gonna give you additional information of like, this is what we can expect to see in actuals at the end of the year based on the historical averages.
usually look back
Yeah,
at
correct.
history.
As I understand it, they're unfilled positions, but you're budgeting for them as if they're filled, right?
Correct.
The expectation is that we'll hire,
Correct.
and then at the end of the year,
And that's where I think I need to make sure and communicate, okay, if that doesn't happen, why didn't it happen? And then this is the dollar amount that that equates to for the district. So I think we can do some of that up front as part of the budgeting process, just so that we're very clear. Like, yes, the expectation is that we fill this, but if we don't, here's what it's gonna mean for the overall budget.
There's fiscal impact.
A couple of other things that we have on here as well. You know, when we talk about what we assume we're gonna get from the state, you know, has been very consistent, and also federal funding. So we do have those numbers in here as well.
And the IDEA funding is included in your Fed number?
Yes, it is included in there. Anything that we get federally funded is included in there. At this time, I know a few weeks ago, there was some questions about what was happening with federal funding in different areas, and that's something that we're monitoring very closely at this time for this year. We're spending funds that were allocated last year for this year. And so at this time, there's no anticipated change to any of those funds for next school year. So they are included in here. The other thing that is also, I guess I should go back to this slide, but we also include any changes to healthcare costs, right? We're a self-funded plan, and so we do have initial, we did receive our initial quotes from our broker about what the potential increases would look like. Originally, when I did this, I had put in 4% because they had given us an initial quote of just over 4.9. I actually think it might come in a little bit less than that, but very conservatively, I put in 4% and then 5% for the remaining 4 years. We know that market trend is closer to 6 to 8%, but the Health Insurance Committee has been doing quite a bit of work to keep those renewals lower. So we did account for that in here. Really what we're trying to do here is, what does the financial outlook look like for the next 5 years for the district? And so I know this is really small and I apologize, but this is also listed online for anyone looking at home. This presentation is listed. And it's also in your packets, and I know it's still a little bit small there, but really, you'll notice that we still see a deficit. That's right now. Projections are very conservative, right? I've overestimated what our revenues or I've underestimated what our revenues are gonna be and overestimated what the expenditures are gonna be slightly. Not that I wanna give you worst case scenario, but I think we have room to tighten this up. Now, this chart is showing all of our operating funds together. If I have a breakout of our ed fund, our operations and maintenance fund, and our transportation fund, we've done a lot of work and we've really aligned, we've much better aligned our ed fund than where it was. And so that is not driving the deficit right now. It is to a small degree in future years, but in the first couple, it's not driving that deficit. The major areas, the two funds that are really driving it are in facilities and maintenance, and then also in transportation. And so those are two areas that we're gonna be looking at very closely. Right now, in 5-year projections, I do have, right, the decrease in O&M for next year, but then also bumping it back up for the 4 subsequent years by $1 million and then 1.5 million. So that will be an area that we'll need to continually look at. Same for transportation. On the revenue side, the state is continuing to prorate that transportation reimbursement, and so we do need to look very closely at, are we capturing every dollar possible that we can in that? You know, we are supposed to receive 80% in reimbursement for transportation, but we don't. This year, we know it's being prorated to 79%. And some people think, well, oh, that's not a big difference, right? It is, because we're getting 79% of 80%. Not 79% instead of 80%. We're gonna be getting 79% of the 80 for that proration. So looking at that, and then also looking on the expenditure side, you know, are we able to buy as many buses as we would like per year? You know, there's some other big things that we'll need to look at. But this projection is much closer than it has been previously, and so I think going forward, we know what adjustments we'll need to make, so that we're continually making adjustments and that we're not making the reductions in some of the other things. But the goal of all this, right, is that come June, I'm much closer to presenting the community and all of you with a balanced budget. That's the ultimate goal, because that's really what's going to lead to long-term financial stability for the district. And I took a little bit more time than I had hoped. So, but what questions can I answer? What additional information can I provide?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So, from the federal funding, and Ms. Rankowski brought it up, hold on, Ms. Rankowski. IDEA, what percentage of that, off the top of your head, what percentage of that comes from our federal funding? Is that the bulk of what we get right
It
now from the
is.
feds?
It is the bulk of what we got
Yeah.
for federal funding.
If we pass the referendum, how much will it affect the 5-year projection?
It will in a couple of ways. So, right, there's two sides to this. Directly, passing a referendum doesn't necessarily directly impact 5-year projections, except when we talk about a couple different areas. In O&M, it really affects salary and benefits in the way of, like, we're not spending our time there chasing some of these projects, some of these problems, some of this reactive work that we're doing right now. And it also impacts it, like, we're spending money differently, right? We're not spending money in O&M sort of on that, like, emergency basis or that reactive basis. It really would allow us to plan proactively so that we would know, right, with a successful referendum and all of the projects being addressed, we would know, okay, we're not gonna have a $1 million expense that we didn't think was gonna happen, right? Like, we can really plan that ahead and get us aligned much more quickly. So it would positively impact O&M in the sense that we know where we'd be spending our money, and we know the timeline, you know, for when things need maintenance, when things need to be replaced, so that we can plan ahead for those things. That's really the goal, right? Is like giving people the opportunity to be like, okay, everything's fixed, and now here's the replacement, here's the schedule that we need to adhere to, and it's proactively built into the budget, so that when we do projections or that we come back in June, it's already accounted for.
Do you think, though, if the referendum passes and they do all these new projects, we get a lot of new stuff, and a lot of things are fixed, would you expect to see a dip in the R&M spend for a couple of years, just generally, because there's just less things to have to work on? You know, because we're not gonna have to do all the preventative maintenances within the first couple of years. The assumption is that we're gonna have several years before things become to the point of having to do, you know, PM work or whatever.
Correct. So there's
should we see a little bit of a lull in spend, just generally?
There could be a lull in spend in terms of like the labor to replace those things, but there's always something, right, that sort of needs fixing or things like that. So I don't know that it would be a dip versus we're shifting on how we're spending the
Okay.
money. I think what we would no longer see is like those emergency type projects, right? Where we're having to spend large sums of money to get something fixed that we hadn't anticipated. So I think where we'd see the dip is in some of that deficit spending that we're doing, or that we've had to do.
I'd imagine we'd go from, I mean, the way I see it, rather than reactive, it's preventative. And so
Exactly.
Right.
Rather than have to replace a whole boiler, we're
Maintaining it.
servicing it.
Servicing it, exactly.
Right.
And better time it.
Now, obviously, we're not
Better
building a
time
brand
it for
new
opportunities
facility,
that come
so
up, you know.
if you build a brand new facility, you might have, 3 to 5 years of not having to do very much at all, except for, cleaning and organizing, so. But a lot of stuff will be new, especially at the high school, because I'm assuming most of our R&M spend is at the high school at this point. I'm sure the elementary schools to a degree, but the high school is probably the biggest
The
chunk of
vast
spend,
majority of
just on the
where the
day-to-day.
O&M money is spent.
Yeah,
Well, and the fear is in the big stuff that hasn't happened yet, right? The big dangers that have not occurred yet, and then it's like, we have to replace it, what do we do?
yeah.
Well, I think you hit it on the head, though. It shifts us from being reactionary and praying some days to being proactive and scheduled and being more efficient with the dollars that we have.
And I think that's the big thing, from our standpoint, with the facilities, is that if the referendum passes, especially from the public's perspective and an understanding, it's like, hey, if we do this, right, we're gonna protect this investment. We wanna make sure that these PM programs are in place, that we're gonna be watching over if it's a new roof and, whatever periodic checks that needs, or boiler systems or bathrooms or whatever the case may be. We wanna make sure that that's pretty well spelled out too, right? So it's one thing to explain what are we gonna do in this referendum, and I think once the referendum passes and, these projects start happening, I think we have to continue, reporting back to the public of like, how are we gonna now take care of our baby, right? We just got all this nice new stuff. How are we gonna maintain it, and what is it gonna look like going forward, so we don't get back into this exact same position, 15, 20, 30 years down the road.
Well, that's the difficult aspect of this whole thing, is that maybe yes or no, money has been misspent in the past, and things have happened, but the past is the past. We're here now,
Yeah.
right? And so I can't go back and change what boards did since the 50s, since, the 60s. We can't do that. The only thing we can do is look forward and do what's best right now. And this is the opportunity to give these kids a chance, to give the district a chance to do it going forward. We have new administration, we have new people in place to push it forward and do it right this time.
Well, and to that point, I think we are setting up the future board, though, and the future generations, right? Where maybe that was not done for us in the past, right? I can tell you just from past experience, I've sat through budget projections and budget meetings for years, and I've often thought, well, this is a guess of a budget, but it's not a real budget, because we don't know if one of these big things are gonna happen, which then blows this thing all out of the water, right? So
Right.
it's also an attempt at creating a more transparent budget, because it is one that's more based on reality as opposed to based on hope, which I think we've lived on for a long time.
Sure.
Great point, great point. And so coming into the conservative figures, I mean, there's obviously upside potential with EAV. And then the assumption too with CPI, if we project it at 3%, that also means that some of these things we're purchasing should also come down as far as cost goes
Correct.
too, right? So there is that,
Absolutely.
they should be scaling down at the same. We might not get the revenue, but we should be spending a little bit less due to that CPI, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I had one last question, and it might
Sure.
not be appropriate for this, but at some point, at least me personally, I'd like to have the conversation where we discuss the fund balance level at which we set, and because I know for years it's been, and it was board approved, that's what I've been told
Yep.
since I've been on the board, the 90 days of, and I know we're not in a position right now where we can say, hey, we'll save this.
So I will say, great lead-in. I'm like, oh, you're setting me up. But we do have, Dr. Rollring and I have a plan to bring back a recommendation for a revised fund balance policy coming at the next board meeting. Currently, our policy is 45 days cash on hand, but we'd really like to get to a different to a different place, right? And so we will be talking about that. What are some of the pros of updating that? And then also sharing what are going to be the challenges, right? Because if we have a policy, we have to follow the policy. And so we may implement a policy that might not be realistic for this year or for next year, but that's where we need to get to. So,
Working towards it.
mhm.
You've saved me from topics for your agendas.
All right. Perfect.
Mark it down.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, comments, questions from the board? Nope. Okay, at this time, there's no action required for the financial projections presentation. The third item of new business is the approval of grades 6 through 8 course book on first reading. Dr. Rowland.
I'm going to hand this one off to Dr. Horn, who's going to take the show.
Thank you and good evening. So I am here to present a recommendation for some changes in the course offering handbook at Kaneland Harder Middle School. These pertain specifically to what we call exploratory classes. Exploratory classes in the middle school, they're designed for students to get an introduction to what at the high school we refer to as electives. So think your college and technical education, your art classes, your music classes. These classes are designed to give an introduction to that field of study and to help students identify what they like, what they want to study when they get to high school, with the focus on career pathways as they get after high school. So this came out of the curriculum review cycle. Currently, I am working with a team of exploratory teachers, an instructional coach, and assistant principal at Kaneland Harder Middle School. We are reviewing what the offerings are and what needs exist within the current offerings. As part of this, we did go through a review of the PACE framework, which, as a reminder, stands for Post-Secondary and Career Expectations, that is required by the state of Illinois. I did do a presentation a couple months back on that, and how it is organized at the high school. We have our elective classes that are just a smattering of classes that students can choose from to help kids keep focused. We do have those into clusters based on jobs or fields that students can go to in the future. The idea here is that we're working backwards and that we're working in sync as a unit district. So we're introducing these concepts, these classes of students at the 6-8 level. They then go on to the high school and they take these classes for credit, and then eventually have opportunities through Fox Valley Career Center or various other post-secondary opportunities for them to go on and not just earn the credit, but find their future careers. So the classes that currently exist, these are not new classes. We're not talking about new materials. There's nothing that needs to be approved here except for the language. It is linking it to what you would see at the high school for career clusters and pathways, as well as concepts that the teachers feel would be more appealing and clear for our students. So for example, that first one, instead of taking an industrial arts class, an introduction to design and building for students that could then go on at the high school level and take more hands-on classes. Another one that I think is my favorite, 7th grade music is being renamed rock band. Just as a high interest way to get students interested in it. The goal here is to just be clear, concise, so our students know what they're looking at, so they get a level of excitement about it, but also to start laying those seeds of understanding. So when they get to the high school and we're talking about identifying pathways and identifying career and exploring, that they have a better frame of understanding for that. So we don't have a situation where students are earning credit because it is not a high school class. You don't earn credits in middle school. You earn credits at the high school. So it's a different level of kind of concern for the board. We're bringing this as a level of awareness and request for approval upon first reading.
I think you need more cool names like that.
Dr. Horn, will 8th graders be able to take the 7th, with eliminating the 8th grade, does that change the class where 7th graders can take 3D art now or not?
No, it does not. So there was a change, there was a reorganization. There was, the way it was structured, 8th graders were not exposed to a computer class.
Okay.
Computer class existed, so there was a pivot to get a computer class up to the 8th grade.
Okay.
And they're, within scheduling, the team is working on a way to make sure that that transitions smoothly.
Okay.
But all students will have the same opportunity to take classes in the same progression, 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Sounds good.
Questions, comments? I think you did an awesome job.
Okay.
It makes me excited to take on this.
That's good.
I can go back.
That it's a credit to the teachers. Very talented group, very dedicated and passionate to working in sync with what the students need at the high school. We actually had Nikki Larson, who works with our grants, come to the high school or come to the team and give an overview of what the PACE framework looks like and what the grant can fund and not fund based on language that exists at the high school. So lots of opportunity for collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah, so next year we should be able to see like enrollment data, like year over year between language.
Rock band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to see if rock band, like.
Rock, kids are taking more students taking
Next
rock
year's
band.
like 30.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Horn. Well, this time I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the course offerings book upon first read.
So moved.
Second.
That was quick. Roll call.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. The board has approved the course book upon first reading. The fourth item of new business is the Kaneland High School weighted grades. Dr. Rowland.
This is an item that was requested by the board at a recent meeting. I'm going to hand this one off again to Dr. Horn, who's going to discuss the work that was already underway and what we will see in the coming months related to this.
All right, so we are shifting focus now to the high school, and we are talking about weighted grades. Just so that we all kind of using the same language here. When we're using the phrase weighted grades, we're talking about a GPA. GPA is on a 4-point scale with A receiving the 4 and F receiving the 0, so on and so forth. What is referred to when we use the phrase weighted grades, that's an additional weight that is carried by the grade because of enrollment of a more rigorous class. Honors classes, dual credit classes, advanced placement, or what we call AP classes. This is typically done either by a half of a weight or a full 1.0 weight. So what that means is that that 4.0 scale still refers to as a 4 being an A, but if you were to take, for example, an AP statistics class, and that was on a 1-point weight, that AP statistics class would be out of a 5-point scale. So you would actually be above a 4.0, or you can get a B and still have a 4.0 within that. Weighted grades do currently exist at Kaneland. So what I do have up there are the classes that we offer currently that receive a weighted grade. There have been some identified gaps within the system. We've had parents ask questions about it. There's a question at the board a few meetings ago, and internally at the high school is something that was already being discussed. One of the identified gaps is that the focus is on advanced placement and dual credit, and there are no weight assigned to what we call enhanced classes. I'm going to use an example within the English department. Your freshman and sophomore year, we offer an enhanced English 9 and enhanced English 10. Junior year and senior year, you have an advanced placement class, AP composition and AP literature that is available for students. So what that means is that freshman and sophomore year, students do not have the ability to earn that weighted grade. They do have the ability to earn it when they're in the AP classes. Taking a look at our surrounding districts, what we found is that we're the only school not offering weighted classes for non-AP classes. Now, each school has it set up a little bit differently. What is fair to say is that it is an accurate statement that for classes not AP, so such as honors or what we call enhanced here, that there's opportunities for other students in surrounding districts to receive a weighted grade on their GPA. Sometimes it's on a half, sometimes it's on a 1.0. One neighboring district actually offers weighted grades, but then caps a GPA so that you have a ceiling that you can hit. It's just really set up different from district to district. However, Kaneland, looking critically at it, we're the only school that does not offer for the enhanced classes.
Can I ask why?
We historically have never done that. We're now taking a critical look of it. So in the 3 years that I've been here, which I can speak to, what I'll say is that most of the focus when it came to grading and credits was based around standards-based grading, both the implementation of it, how it was transitioned from a 4-point to a 5-grade option, and then of course the sunsetting of it and the parting ways of it. That took up a lot of the institutional focus, but the conversation to shift it didn't begin about a year and a half ago or so. But as far as why, because a lot of the schools, when you look at it, it's been set up for several years. Why in the years that we have, it hasn't been.
So you did say as far as because we were SPG, there was no way you could.
That was the case for 3 years. I actually taught Enhanced English 10 when we created it here. It did not exist. I was on the team that brought Enhanced 9, Enhanced 10, and Enhanced 11, because at the time we did not have advanced placement. And when it was being built, having it weighted as honors was not part of the conversation. Why it wasn't part of the conversation? I'm not sure. I was a classroom teacher at that time, but it was not something we were looking at. So it predates SBG, but what I'll say is in the couple years since we've been looking at it, SBG has been taking up a significant amount of time and resources and thought. So for the last couple of years, that's why it hasn't. But when you go back to historical, why it wasn't, this is when my daughter was born. So this is 17 years ago, when the classes were built. I'm not sure. One thing, some items, good question though. Items to consider is that colleges consider the classes that you're taking in the context of classes offered at the school. So the fact that Kaneland does not offer honor weight for honors classes, when you're taking a critical look at the overall GPA earned, that doesn't count against the student. Colleges have moved to a holistic approach. 15 years ago, everything was about the ACT as the end-all, be-all. I know we shifted to the SAT, so you can kind of use those synonymously. SAT, or now the ACT, is a big part of it. GPA is a big part of it. And extracurricular involvement is a big part of it. So they're looking holistically at it. Some colleges and universities do take that weighted GPA and recalculate it anyway. So we could send off a transcript that has a student at a 4.5 GPA, but depending on the college, they may just take that 4.5, disaggregate it, and then recalculate it based on the 4.0. Some colleges do that, some colleges do not, so it really just depends. It tends to be the more selective institutions that do detract that. Those are also the ones that are taking a critical look at the GPAs and how they're earned and what's offered. Current work, to Dr. Rolling's point, that's happening within Kaneland High School. There is a curriculum committee that is meeting that does have representation of teachers from across the departments at the school, and looking at the renewing the weighted grade policy. Conversations are about that half point versus 1 point and what would best fit. And then vetting on a selection of identified courses and what those courses would look like, with the goal of bringing a recommendation. So the way the credits are earned and the way they're set up, that is determined at the local level. So that is something that is determined by the school board. So the way we do that is we bring on an annual basis a course offering handbook for the board to approve. That's done in the fall. Reason why we do that in the fall is because we do course requests in the early winter, and currently right now we're taking those requests and starting to build the schedule. So the course offering book that's approved by the board, those are the rules and regulations by which we're governed for that year, and how we're communicating with our families. So the goal is to have the work of the committee done by the time we bring the offerings back, and we can say that this class is going to be weighted at a half credit extra or a credit extra, and here's why, and here are the added classes that we're putting forward to recommend. We want to make sure that we get this right, so we do have an honors course evaluation tool that we're utilizing to guide the process, to guide the thinking. Brian Kowalski, the assistant principal for curriculum at the high school, is leading this. Nathan Schroll, who's a former assistant principal for curriculum at the high school, did begin a lot of this work. So it is a collaborative process, going through it, taking a look at what's being offered, what it means to have a weighted class and to have it be honors. The duration of the class is a semester-long class, is a year-long class. So there's a level of consistency, so we can stand before the board and say that we're confident that this requires an additional weighting. So when we put those transcripts off, that we are proud of the work that we're putting behind it.
So,
All right. Yes.
so as far as, so if I really liked enhancement, and I've heard from parents, my wife has heard, a lot of parents are talking about it.
Yep.
Is that something that we're looking to do, or are we focusing more on the AP?
No. So great question. So the enhanced classes, as they exist, are the ones that we're currently looking at for receiving a weighted grade.
And is it possible to start at the beginning of this fall, 2025?
The problem that we have with that is we've already approved the course handbook, and we've used that handbook to generate schedules through requests, so that ship has sailed, so to speak, because the students that have asked for the classes asked for it under the rules and regulations that were approved this past fall.
So would it the soonest then, it would have to be the following year?
It would have to be the following year, so school year 26.
But I think in terms of keeping our reputation strong with colleges too, we want to make sure we're doing it right. Because if we just make everything honors, or give everything a weighted grade, then we'll get that they will start deconstructing our GPAs also. So I think we want to make sure we get this right, and that these classes have the right amount of rigor, and that we can demonstrate that.
In which I agree with that, and I'm not looking for every class, but if you're, the E9 English, if you're specifically avid for English, a few courses, I do feel because the students are working above a little harder, they're achieving more, they should be rewarded for that. So in that sense, I agree that, hey, these kids chose to be in here, they're giving it all, they want an accolade, and I think the greatest accolade is say, hey, here you get a half a point added to your GPA. I mean, that's my...
Dr. Horn, does this evaluation look to get away with enhancement fully, or would there be enhancement honors and AP, or just honors and AP?
So it is not looking to part ways with enhanced classes. There could potentially be classes that are in departments that are being offered that would be fitting for an honors weight.
Okay.
Now, I do anticipate that if we want to be consistent with what our surrounding districts are looking at, or are doing, I should say, and honestly, in future presentations, I'd be ready with this information. Off the cuff, if I had to speak, most schools use the phrase honors.
Yeah.
That means that most colleges that students are applying to are looking at honors. So I think the recommendation would be to part ways with the phrase enhancement and use the phrase honors.
Okay.
Not that we're looking at reducing the number of classes. So that my English example would be honors 9, honors 10, with math, it'd be honors geometry,
Yep.
or honors biologies as opposed to enhanced.
Yeah, sounds good.
And it would be consistent from department to department.
How many enhancement courses do you have right now for the sophomore?
Of the core departments, they exist. So when I start talking about core, English, math, social studies, science, they all have them.
Okay.
Questions, comments? No? Thank you, Dr. Horn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, there's no action required for the discussion on the weighted grades at KHS. It is now time for the, excuse me. It is now time for the superintendent/board report. Dr. Rowling.
Yeah, I have actually a number of things this evening. Starting off with the author of the Patrick Picklebottom book series, which is a phrase I would never thought I would say at a board meeting. Jay Moletsky is inviting Kaneland students in grades K through 5 to submit a mystery story to be included in his next Patrick Picklebottom book. This is an opportunity for Kaneland students only. Any students wishing to submit a story should send it to Dr. Sarah Mumm by February 25th. So it's an opportunity for our young writers to potentially get their ideas published. On February 21st, students in our capstone engineering and engineering project management courses will be going on a trip to Metflow in Sugar Grove, where they will experience the engineering process and additive manufacturing in a state-of-the-art facility. A big thanks to Mr. Barron and Metflow for setting up this great opportunity for our students. It has been a busy couple weeks for the Knights wrestling teams. Our girls won the Rock Falls Regional and qualified 7 wrestlers for the Geneseo Sectional, which takes place this weekend, including champions Angelina Gochis, Brooklyn Schaefer, and Sadie Kinsella. The boys this past weekend at home qualified 6 wrestlers for the Washington Sectional, including champion Alex Gochis. Good luck to these athletes in the coming weeks. As we learned last time, our DECA team competed in their sectional competition and qualified 18 members for the state competitions. Carly Filick and Audrey Walker placed 3rd overall, and Kiara Lopez finished 4th. So good luck to those participants as they prepare for the state competition this spring. Kindergarten registration took place this Saturday at all 4 elementary schools. It was a lot of fun. A lot of big eyes on little people as they walked in the building. We registered about 200 students for the Kaneland class of 2038. Big thanks to the staff that helped with that. I was able to be over at Stewart. It was a lot of fun. The Ed Services Department will be hosting the Show What You Know IAR virtual parent meeting on Thursday the 13th at 5:30. They'll be reviewing information about the upcoming IAR in general and sharing ideas with parents about how they can help their kids prepare. Information is available on the district website. Recently, the KEA Executive Committee voted to support the upcoming referendum. I want to thank our KEA partners for their support on this effort. I may have talked Ms. Axel into being in a video today. She did a great job. Administration will be hosting the following informational events in the coming weeks for members of the public interested in learning about the potential referendum projects. Tomorrow night at 6, we are hosting an informational meeting in the auditorium at the high school for PTOs, PTNs, booster groups, youth sports, and those types of groups. We will host tours of Kaneland High School from 5 to 7 on Tuesday, the 18th, and a town hall in the Caneville Community Center at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 19th. Additionally, I already put that down, so, sorry. Additionally, we want to note that the KEA voted to support us, but you all know that already. And then there will be no CAC meeting this month. It is replaced by the CAC/KEA co-hosted school board candidate forum that is scheduled to be held in the cafeteria here at Harder Middle School on Thursday, February 20th at 7. This event is open to the public. So, busy couple weeks here in Kaneland.
Heck yeah. Dr. Bogan.
Yep, I just have 2 items, both happening this week. We do have a health insurance committee meeting. It meets at the district office from 4 to 5:30 p.m. That will be Thursday, February 13th. And then also that night, we have the Finance Advisory Committee FAC will be meeting Thursday, February 13th from 7 to 8:30 p.m., but that is virtual. So please let me know if you'd like to attend.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Slattery, you're up.
Good evening. Last Monday, girls basketball held their senior night against Bartlett High School. Kaneland won 74-27. They also beat Morris last Friday in a close game of 55-51. Boys basketball also had another successful week, beating Rochelle 75-40 and winning against Sycamore in a close overtime game of 58-53. Last Thursday, the Kaneland High School Band held their annual Winter Band concert. Students performed a bunch of different songs in their different band groups for families and friends in the KHS auditorium. Last week, the ACES Club won their regional competition with students placing first in physics and engineering categories and placing a student in every other category that they competed in too. Finally, for girls bowling, seniors Emma Pernice and Presley Sutherland played in their regional meet hosted by Kaneland at Mardi Gras Lanes and both advanced to sectionals. They'll compete this Saturday at Dixon, hosted by Oregon High School. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to say I was texting with Mr. Rollman on Saturday, and he just kept sending me updates of successes of our teams, so it was a lot of fun.
Well, on that note, I just want to do a quick shout out to the boys basketball team, because I don't know if you guys have seen, but they're kicking butt, and that's awesome. So just a quick.
They have one more home game on the 21st. If you haven't seen them play, you really should. It's
Yeah. The whole our whole athletics side of things excel, but it's awesome to see that type of success. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. I'm looking at the camera.
I'm sure they're all watching.
And
Yeah, they're all watching.
yeah, they're all watching. I'm sure you guys are watching. Excited. But but that's awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed into topics for future agendas. Anything?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up a topic, not necessarily something brought up here. I don't know if it's a school district can handle it or if it's the village. My biggest concern is the safety of traffic at Blackberry Creek. I'm not aware, or if anybody else is aware at their locations of the issues. My wife was hit by a car, kind of side swipes on Friday, and the individual that had hit her wasn't paying attention, and another parent who had witnesses had a child, had to grab the child back. And my personal experience too is cars are going through stop signs, cars aren't paying attention, people are getting cut off, people are bypassing. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm aware the principal, has to go and do the crossing guard. I've seen where the crossing guard's out there and people aren't even listening to the crossing guard, and it's gotten bad. And the fact that the woman didn't even stop when she hit my wife, and luckily, she grazed her with the car. It's pretty serious because it could have been a kid. And this has been going on. I've had from my oldest going to school there for 10 years, and it doesn't seem like it's getting better. It's getting very congested, and I know we can't put a cop there all the time. And when there is a cop there, things are good. When there's a cop not there, it's chaotic. And I don't know, Anderson just gets jammed. Everybody's fighting to get in and get out like there's a fire. So I just wanted to bring it to the attention. If it's going on at any other schools, it's getting dangerous. It really is. And I just wanted to bring this to the attention. It's getting, like I said, pretty serious. So
I don't know if it's that extreme in Patrol, but it's bad too. I mean, there are people, jumping on a line. Just the other day, there was they had a squeal on the brakes and the kids ran, and and I think it's the same thing. When the cop is there, people behave, and when the cop isn't there, I can jump out.
Our crossing guard at Stewart, she deals with a lot. I actually videoed one time when someone was being verbally aggressive with her because they just lack of respect, lack of everyone has what they have to do right now is so important that they don't consider the safety of others. And so I don't know if it's a school you know, a district thing or, you know, partnering with communities.
Societal issue.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think we can definitely have a conversation with our partners in the communities and see if there's something we can do, and you know, work with my team to get out to sites, take a look, be out there during pickup and drop off, so that we can start to assess the problems.
It may just need a reminder too.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
a lot of times that's all it really needs, is just, hey, parents, I know you're all busy, but stay in line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing's that important, right?
No. Right, these are kids.
There's no fun.
Okay.
I'm good if that's a thing.
Anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, public comments. Nothing? No public comments? Since we have no one signed up, I'll offer the floor to anyone who wants to come speak. Once, twice? Alright. Well then, the Board of Education is scheduled for a closed session to discuss Illinois Open Meetings Act Section 2C1, where there will be no action taken following the session. Therefore, after the vote to go into closed session, the recording of tonight's meeting will be concluded. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session and discuss Illinois Open Meetings Act 2C1 at 7:08 p.m.
Second.
It's gotta be a record.
It may be, at least in my short time here.
Okay.
Oh, wait, roll call. Mr. Mankowski?
Oh, sorry, roll call, sorry.
Mr. Kleisner?
Aye.
Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Dr. Lawler?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye. 6-0, we're now in closed session.